A plane takes off, full of passengers, following a routine flight path, and then vanishes into thin air. No distress call, no debris, no answers. From aircraft that disappeared without a trace to flights that sent cryptic final messages before plunging into the unknown. These are the most chilling and unexplainable plane disasters in history. Some of these mysteries defy logic. Others suggest cover-ups, sabotage, or even something more sinister. But what really happened? And could it happen again? Buckle up, because what you're about to hear may change the way you think about flying. Forever. Let's begin. There is something deeply unsettling about a plane that simply vanishes. No wreckage, no distress call, nothing. It is as if the aircraft and everyone on board were erased from existence. In an age where satellites can zoom in on a license plate from space, how is it possible that massive commercial jets can disappear without a trace? One of the most famous cases is Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. On March 8, 2014, this Boeing 727 took off from Kuala Lumpur, heading for Beijing with 239 people on board. But less than an hour after takeoff, the aircraft made an unexpected turn west, away from its intended route. Then, it disappeared from radar. Military tracking later showed it had flown for hours in the wrong direction, over the vast Indian Ocean, before vanishing completely. Despite one of the most expensive and extensive search efforts in aviation history, the plane has never been fully recovered. Some fragments washed up on distant shores, but the main wreckage and the cause of its disappearance remain a mystery. Was it a deliberate act? A catastrophic mechanical failure? Or something even stranger? But this is not the first time a plane has disappeared without a trace. Decades earlier, in 1937, aviation pioneer Amelia Earhart set out to circumnavigate the globe. She and her navigator, Fred Noonan, were flying over the Pacific Ocean when radio contact was lost. Despite an immediate and desperate search effort, neither she, Noonan, nor their aircraft were ever found. Over the years, theories have ranged, from an emergency landing on a deserted island to secret capture by an unknown force. But the truth? Still unknown. And these are just two cases. There are dozens of flights that have disappeared, never to be seen again. Could some of these aircraft still be out there, resting in the depths of the ocean, hidden in dense jungles, or even, if you believe the more extreme theories, taken by forces we do not yet understand? Some claim government cover-ups. Others whisper about time warps and dimensions beyond our comprehension. But one thing is certain. Whenever a plane vanishes without a trace, it leaves behind a haunting question. What really happened? And as we move forward, we will look at some cases where planes were found. But the truth behind them only led to more chilling mysteries. There is something truly haunting about a plane that keeps flying long after the people inside have lost control. These so-called ghost planes have terrified investigators, not just because of the eerie sight of an aircraft drifting aimlessly across the sky, but because of the chilling truth behind what caused it. One of the most infamous cases is Helios, Airways Flight 522. On August 14, 2005, this Boeing 737 was on a routine flight from Cyprus to Greece when something went horribly wrong. As the plane climbed to cruising altitude, air traffic controllers tried to contact the pilots, but there was no response. Fighter jets were scrambled to intercept the aircraft, and when they pulled up alongside it, what they saw was terrifying. The cockpit windows were frosted over, and inside, both pilots appeared to be slumped over, unresponsive. In the cabin, passengers sat motionless in their seats, oxygen masks hanging uselessly from the ceiling. The plane was still flying on autopilot, but everyone on board was already gone. The cause? A slow, silent killer. Hypoxia. A pressurization failure had caused the oxygen levels inside the cabin to drop without anyone realizing it. At high altitudes, the human brain loses function quickly when deprived of oxygen. Confusion sets in, vision blurs, and within minutes, unconsciousness takes over. By the time the crew should have realized what was happening, it was already too late. The plane flew on autopilot for over 2 hours before running out of fuel and crashing into a remote hillside, killing all 121 people on board. Helios 522 is not the only case of a ghost plane. In 1999, professional golfer Payne Stewart's private jet suffered a similar fate. After taking off from Florida, radio contact was lost, and once again, fighter jets were sent to investigate. They saw the same horrifying sight: frosted windows and no movement inside. The jet continued flying on its own for 4 hours before finally crashing in a field in South Dakota. All on board long gone before impact. These cases raise an unsettling question. Could this happen on a flight you take? Modern aircraft have safety systems to prevent such disasters, but as history has shown, no technology is foolproof. A single unnoticed error, a pressurization failure, or a slow response from the crew can turn a routine flight into a ghostly tragedy. And if you thought these cases were disturbing, wait until you hear about the next mystery. Planes that did not just crash, but landed with something horrifying inside. For decades, the Bermuda Triangle has been one of the most chilling mysteries in aviation history. A region of ocean stretching between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, it has become infamous for planes and ships vanishing without a trace. Some believe it is a place where the laws of physics break down, where strange forces interfere with navigation, and where entire aircraft simply disappear as if swallowed by the sea. But is there any truth to these stories, or is it all just a legend? One of the most famous cases is Flight 19, a squadron of 5 U.S. Navy bombers that vanished. In 1945, on a routine training mission, the pilots reported strange compass malfunctions and became hopelessly lost. Their commanding officer, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, radioed back with increasing distress, saying, "Everything looks wrong. We cannot be sure of any direction." Then, silence. Not a single aircraft was ever found. Even more bizarre, a rescue plane sent to search for them also disappeared. That is 6 planes, gone without a trace, in a single day. And it is not just Flight 19. In 1948, a passenger aircraft, Star Tiger, vanished while flying over the Bermuda Triangle. A year later, another, Star Ariel, met the same fate. No wreckage, no survivors, no explanation. Even experienced pilots have reported strange phenomena: compasses spinning wildly, unexplained cloud formations, and moments where they seemed to lose all sense of time and space. So what is going on here? Some theories suggest magnetic anomalies, where the Earth's natural forces cause navigation instruments to fail. Others believe in rogue waves or powerful storms capable of taking down aircraft in seconds. But then there are the more extreme ideas: time warps, wormholes, even alien abductions. Could it be that something beyond our understanding is at play in this mysterious region? Of course, skeptics argue that the Bermuda Triangle is no more dangerous than any other part of the ocean, and that many of these disappearances can be explained by human error and bad weather. But that does not change the fact that some cases remain completely unsolved. Whatever the truth may be, the Bermuda Triangle continues to be one of the most feared and unexplained regions in aviation. But if you think that is terrifying, wait. until you hear about the next mystery. Planes that crash under circumstances so bizarre that even investigators are left speechless. There is something deeply unsettling about the final words of a doomed pilot. Those last desperate transmissions, sometimes calm, sometimes filled with terror, can hold the key to unraveling what happened in the moments before disaster struck. But in some cases, these Mayday calls only add to the mystery, because they make no sense at all. Take Japan Airlines Flight 1628. In 1986, this Boeing 747 was flying over Alaska when something bizarre happened. The veteran pilot, Captain Kenju Terauchi, radioed air traffic control with an urgent report. He and his crew were seeing something in the sky. A massive, unidentified object, glowing with lights, was following them. For nearly an hour, the strange craft seemed to shadow the Chai-Date's plane, moving in ways no known aircraft could. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. The crew was shaken, but the flight landed safely. This time, there was no disaster. But the question remains, what did they see? And could other pilots, who sent strange final transmissions, before vanishing, have encountered something similar? Then there is Swissair Flight 111. In 1998, this flight from New York to Geneva was cruising smoothly when the pilots suddenly reported smoke in the cockpit. Within minutes, the situation escalated. "We have a fire in the cockpit," came the chilling message. But here is where things get strange. Investigators later determined that there was no fire in the cockpit. The source of the disaster was an electrical failure in the ceiling, far above the pilots' heads. The fire spread so rapidly that the Andromeda crew never had a chance. The plane plunged into the Atlantic Ocean, killing all 229 people on board. Did the pilots misinterpret what was happening? Or were they trying to send a message about something even stranger? And then, of course, there is Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. This flight's last transmission was so normal that it is terrifying. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Those were the final words from the cockpit before the plane disappeared. Forever. No distress call, no sign of trouble. Just a routine sign-off, followed by one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time. What really happened in that cockpit? And was there something the pilots knew but could not say? Some of these cases have logical explanations. Others remain wide open to speculation. But one thing is clear. When a pilot's last words defy reason, it only makes their fate more terrifying. And if you think these messages were strange, wait until you hear about the next cases, when planes crashed in ways that should have been impossible. Imagine this. An airport control tower receives a distress call from an unknown aircraft. The pilots sound confused, speaking as if they are from a different time. When the plane finally lands, it is not listed on any flight schedules, and the technology inside is decades out of date. Then, before anyone can stop it, the aircraft takes off again, vanishing into the sky as mysteriously as it arrived. One of the most bizarre aviation legends is the story of Pan Am Flight 914. According to the tale, this passenger plane took off from New York in 1955, bound for Miami. But somewhere along the way, it disappeared without a trace. No wreckage was found, no distress signals were sent, just gone. Then, 37 years later, in 1992, a plane suddenly appeared on radar over Caracas, Venezuela. Air traffic control, baffled by the unidentified aircraft, made contact with the pilot. His response was chilling. He claimed to be flying Pan Am Flight 914 from New York to Miami, completely unaware that decades had passed. Before officials could act, the plane allegedly took off again, vanishing into thin air. Now, most experts, Dismiss this as an urban legend, a mix of conspiracy theories and science fiction. But it raises an interesting question. Could something like this actually happen? Pilots have reported experiencing strange time distortions, moments where the flight clock does not match the passage of time outside the cockpit. Some believe this is linked to electromagnetic anomalies or unknown atmospheric conditions. Others go even further, speculating that certain regions of the Earth, like the Bermuda Triangle, could contain natural time warps that bend reality itself. Of course, the scientific explanation is far less dramatic. Lost time can often be explained by pilot disorientation, miscommunication, or even sleep deprivation. But what if there is more to it? Could there be undiscovered forces in our skies that sometimes interfere with time itself? And if a plane from the past ever did reappear in our era, what would that mean for everything we think we know about aviation? Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. Aviation is full of mysteries that defy logic. But sometimes, the strangest thing is not when a plane disappears. It is when it comes back. And speaking of bizarre returns, our next case is even more unsettling, because it involves a plane that landed just as expected, but with something terrifying inside. There are some flights that seem doomed from the moment disaster strikes. Catastrophic mechanical failures, complete loss of control, and conditions that should make survival impossible. And yet, against all odds, the aircraft somehow makes it back to the ground. Are these cases simply extraordinary examples of human skill and luck? Or is there something more mysterious at play? One of the most incredible stories of survival is United Airlines Flight 232. On July 19, 1989, this DC-10 was cruising over Iowa when its tail engine suddenly exploded, sending shrapnel through the aircraft and severing all 3 hydraulic lines. For those unfamiliar with aviation, hydraulics control everything: steering, altitude, even basic stability. Without them, a plane is nothing more than a giant metal brick falling from the sky. The pilots should have been helpless, and yet, somehow, they were not. Using nothing but the uneven thrust from the 2 remaining engines, Captain Al Haynes and his crew managed to steer the crippled aircraft toward an airport. What followed was both miraculous and tragic. The plane hit the runway hard, cartwheeled, and broke apart in a fiery explosion. But against all logic, 185 of the 296 people on board survived. How did they even get that far? Investigators called it a mix of pilot skill, teamwork, and pure luck. But many survivors believe something greater was at work that day. Then there is Taka Flight 110, a case that defied every expectation. In 1988, this Boeing 737 was approaching New Orleans when both engines suddenly failed mid-flight due to severe rain and hail. With no power and nowhere to go, the plane should have been doomed. But the captain, Carlos Dardano, performed what can only be described as an aviation miracle. Gliding the powerless jet through the sky like a paper airplane, he managed to touch down on a narrow grass levee, perfectly intact. Not a single person was injured. The plane was even repaired and flown again. Stories like these make people wonder, what really determines who survives a plane crash? Is it purely skill? Random chance? Or could there be something unexplainable? A force that intervenes in moments of absolute disaster? Some pilots have reported eerie gut feelings that told them exactly what to do in a crisis, while others recall inexplicable flashes of insight that saved hundreds of lives. These events remind us that, while aviation follows the laws of physics, sometimes those laws seem to bend in the most unbelievable ways. And speaking of unbelievable, our next case is one of the strangest yet. A plane that landed as expected, But what was found inside left investigators completely horrified. Not all plane crashes are accidents. Some are surrounded by so many unanswered questions, strange coincidences, and conflicting reports that they leave people wondering, was it really just a malfunction, or was something more sinister at play? Over the years, some of the most mysterious aviation disasters have been linked to sabotage, terrorism, or even government cover-ups. And in some cases, the official explanations only make the conspiracies stronger. Take TWA Flight 800, one of the most controversial crashes in modern history. On July 17, 1996, this Boeing 747 was climbing over the Atlantic after taking off from New York when it suddenly exploded in midair. Official investigators ruled it was caused by a fuel tank malfunction, a tragic accident. But eyewitnesses, including trained military personnel, reported seeing something streaking toward the plane just before the explosion. Some believe it was a missile, possibly a test gone wrong or a secret attack that was covered up. To this day, many people, including former government officials, are not convinced we were told the whole truth. Then there is the Lockerbie bombing, one of the most infamous acts of terrorism in aviation history. In 1988, Pan Am Flight 103 was flying over Scotland when a bomb hidden inside a suitcase detonated, killing all 259 people on board and 11 more on the ground. Libyan agents were blamed for the attack, but even decades later, some believe the IDVD tied. True masterminds were never revealed. Was it a carefully orchestrated political move? Were there deeper secrets behind the timing of the attack? And, of course, there is the mystery of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. While the official search for the missing plane focused on mechanical failure or pilot action, many suspect a far darker possibility: cyber sabotage. Could someone have hacked into the aircraft systems remotely, taking control and sending it far off course? Some believe the plane was deliberately diverted for reasons we may never know. And then there are the rumors of classified military involvement, suggesting that powerful forces may be preventing the truth from coming out. Aviation disasters always have official reports, but that does not mean those reports answer every question. Sometimes the truth is buried beneath layers of secrecy, conflicting evidence, and information that never makes it to the public. And that leaves us with one final question. How many of these so-called accidents were not accidents at all? But if you think these cases are unsettling, our last mystery is one that has haunted the world for decades. A plane that seemed to take off into another reality, never to return. Now, this is where things get truly bizarre. What if a plane crashes, but no official record of the flight exists? What if passengers swear they were booked on a flight that, according to all airline data, never took off? These are the kinds of mysteries that push beyond the limits of aviation and into the realm of the unexplained. One of the strangest stories is that of Santiago Flight 5113. According to legend, this commercial flight took off from Germany in 1954, bound for Brazil, but it never arrived. No wreckage was found, no distress signals were received. It was as if the plane had vanished into thin air. Decades later, in 1989, an unidentified aircraft suddenly appeared on radar near an airport in Brazil. When authorities rushed to investigate, they reportedly found something horrifying. The plane had landed perfectly, its engines still running, but inside, every seat was occupied by a skeleton. The pilot was still in the cockpit, his skeletal hands gripping the controls, as if he had been flying the entire time. How could a plane disappear for 35 years and then reappear fully intact, with nothing but bones inside? Most experts dismiss the story as a hoax, but it remains one of the most chilling aviation legends ever told. Then there are the cases of passengers who claim they were booked on flights that never existed. Some have reported buying tickets, checking in, even getting boarding passes, only to later discover that no such flight was on record. Could these simply be clerical errors? Or is there something stranger at play? Some believe these events are connected to the Mandela effect, the eerie phenomenon where large groups of people remember events, names, or facts differently from recorded history. Could it be possible that some plane crashes occurred in a version of reality that no longer exists? Or, even more unsettling, could certain flights have slipped between dimensions, leaving behind only the memories of those who were supposed to be on board? Of course, skeptics argue that Santiago Flight 5113 is nothing more than an urban myth, and that phantom flights are simply misunderstandings or computer errors. But what if, just for a moment, we entertain the idea that history itself is not as fixed as we think? Could it be that some planes really do take off and end up somewhere they were never meant to be? Aviation mysteries have baffled experts for decades. But these final cases leave us with questions that go far beyond technology, human error, or even sabotage. They make us wonder if, sometimes, flights are lost not just in the air, but in time, in space, or in the very fabric of reality itself. And if that is true, what else might be out there, waiting to return? For all the theories, legends, and conspiracies, the truth is that science may already hold some of the answers to aviation's greatest mysteries. While some disappearances seem impossible, modern physics, atmospheric science, and advanced technology suggest that many of these cases might have logical, though no less terrifying, explanations. One possibility that has fascinated scientists is vortex turbulence, an extreme form of air disturbance that can send an aircraft into an uncontrollable spin. These invisible whirlpools of air can form due to sudden shifts in temperature, pressure, or even the wake of another aircraft. In rare cases, they could cause a plane to be violently displaced, possibly even in ways that make it look like it has vanished. Some have speculated that such vortexes could, in theory, interfere with time and space, leading to the more outlandish ideas of aircraft slipping into another dimension. While mainstream physics does not support this, it does raise an unsettling thought. What if some lost flights were simply taken by forces of nature we do not yet fully understand? Then there is the role of the ocean itself. The deep sea is the final resting place for countless wrecks, many of which remain undiscovered. The sheer size and depth of the ocean, combined with powerful underwater currents, can scatter debris beyond recognition. In some cases, entire aircraft have gone down, only to leave behind no trace. This is why Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 has remained such a stubborn mystery. The ocean's vast, uncharted depths are capable of hiding even something as large as a Boeing 737. But technology is rapidly changing the way we search for missing planes. AI-powered tracking systems, real-time satellite surveillance, and improved black box technology could mean that disappearances like MH370 might never happen again. In fact, recent advances in ocean mapping and deep-sea exploration have led to new discoveries about past crashes that were once thought to be unsolvable. Could it be that, in the near future, no plane will ever truly be lost again? Of course, that raises another question. What happens when we do find the answers? Will they confirm our scientific understanding, or will they open doors to even greater mysteries? Because while technology may give us more tools to track flights, it does not change the fact that, sometimes, the sky itself seems to have secrets of its own. And with that, we are left with one final question. After everything we have explored, do we truly understand aviation? Or are there still mysteries in the air that even science cannot explain?